Hello everyone, Shannon DeConda here with NamUs. Let's talk today about a question that comes up constantly in our world. What should productivity look like for a medical auditor? And look, it's a fair question and one that I wish we really had a straightforward answer for, but really it really doesn't. And it really comes down to more about what do you have your medical auditors doing in your organization? What are their roles and responsibilities? Because that varies in every organization. So when we're presented with this question, it's really hard to give a straightforward answer. So if your auditors are only looking at and reviewing records only, nothing else, we can talk benchmarks. But let's be real, most auditors aren't just auditing. So before we talk productivity, let's first understand the full scope of what audit looks like, especially within your organization. I have to tell you, there was an organization I went to one time up in the DC area, and they said, look, we have a problem. We have some of our auditors who are only turning 5 encounters in an entire day. And I was like, that just seems really strange. So let's see what your auditors are doing. Well, it turns out that their auditors were answering phone calls. They were helping to schedule surgeries. They were also doing things like talking to patients about what their expectations were and how much they would owe for surgeries. So again, it makes sense when we look at the dynamics of what certain auditors are doing, especially those that may be embedded within the organization themselves. So now with all that being said, when we're looking at productivity strictly for auditing, here are some of those expectations that you could look at. If you have an auditor who is doing nothing but auditing and writing reports, you could expect for E&M maybe around 10 per encounter. For NamUs standards, that's what we look at for our internal auditing team, who is doing nothing but auditing all day long, writing audit reports and providing education scenarios. 10 encounters per hour. And again, that's their only responsibility. For surgical encounters, and again, this is going to depend upon the specialty, but our expectation would be 5 to 8. And again, that variance is going to depend upon the specialty. And we're asked, how do you get that variance? Well, if you're looking at things like, let's go to orthopedics for a minute, those total knees, they're going to be redundant and kind of the same, but then you're going to get some that are going to be variants and they're going to be very specific. So they're going to take some specialty nuance to get in and really understand those op reports. So that's where you're going to get some of that variance. We're going to have that really change between the 5 to 8. But those numbers should be seen as a starting point. They shouldn't be used as that specification of these are the benchmarks that we're going to hold our organization to. So let me again just be crystal clear. Productivity cannot come at the expense of accuracy as well. If we have an auditor who's hitting 20 E&Ms an hour, but missing factors, missing MDM, missing all the subtleties in an E&M, that's causing us risk errors. So auditing can't just be about hitting quotas either. So we can't hold auditors to benchmarks at the risk of having errors either. So it becomes a quality and a productivity in tandem with each other. So we have to not only look at, are we hitting productivity, but are we maintaining quality? So when we're talking about setting internal standards, if you're in a leadership role, one of the things I would like to encourage you to consider doing is an internal study of your own. One of the things that you should do is look at, what is your own internal team doing? Look at creating your own internal audit study and finding out what your average auditor is doing your own internal time study. This would allow you to know what your average audit team is doing so that you have your own internal thresholds. That would enable you to know what your accountability window should be for E&Ms, for surgeries, and then you could even look at by specialty, by department, so that you have your own internal standards. And then you can also set productivity and quality measures together. Think of it this way. If I have a delivery driver who can create a delivery route and hit 125 packages, but I have another delivery driver who's only hitting 15 packages in a day, I'm going to wonder why I have one delivery driver who's hitting 125 packages a day, but I have another one who's hitting 15 packages in a day. Well, when I look at their routes, then I notice the 125 packages a day is in a densely populated apartment area, while the 15 package a day is in a rural area. So again, you know your landmarks. You know whether you're in a rural area or a densely populated apartment area. So creating your own internal standards based on what you know of your own landscape, it'll help create better standardization for your own organization as opposed to trying to create or trying to fit to standardization models that may not fit your organization. Only then can you really create some realistic roles and standards that'll really fit your organization well. So as we think of this, what should productivity really look like for you? I think you really have to create that model, and you have to balance that productivity against accuracy models as well, and then use those benchmarks to help create QA models for your team and really create priorities, create KPIs that will help encourage your team towards continuing to not only create audits that encourage providers towards continued quality and increase improvement. So with that, I'll wrap up today's segment. I hope this was helpful for you. We'll continue these sessions and we'll continue to look at productivity, quality, and increasing our performance. Thanks. Again, Shannon DeConda with NamUs, and I hope you have a great day.